Well, good afternoon to you if you're in the UK, or late morning perhaps like Rochelle if you joined us from Florida, or early morning in the west coast of the US, or wherever in the world you happen to be, and we'll find out about that a little bit later. So this is going to be a fantastic webinar. We've actually had over 300 people booked, so we'll see how many we got on such a baking afternoon, but we're delighted that people have booked to come along. Hugo Minney is going to talk to us today, and you can see him there in his bright shirt, and you can see that he's going to talk to us about benefits realization management, maps, profiles, and evaluation. So he's going to take us through this. It's going to be a very interactive session. So as always, we're going to use menti.com. There's the code 397227. And we do recommend, if you can use it on a second device, your phone or something like that, you'll find it a whole lot easier to interact with us. And you can do various things with Mentimeter. Some of you have already given us a thumbs up or a heart. That's brilliant. But there's also a new comments section on there as well. So send in your comments and we can have a look at those. So it just helps us know that you're with us. And then of course there'll be the usual voting, and we've got some really good questions for you today. So please take part there. We also uploaded a handout. It's a guide to using benefits management framework, and it's by Hugo and by Sarah Paris. So I think Sarah's going to join us today. So do help yourselves to that. Hugo will refer to it during parts of our actual webinar this afternoon. We're going to take community questions. So you can submit questions, do that via GoToWebinar, and do that at any time. And the questions will probably be dealt with during the after hours session. So we're going to, at 5 o'clock, we'll have a natural break. We'll have a few notices, and then if you'd like to stay behind for questions and answers, then we'll allow up to half an hour for that, and maybe we'll open up some mics so we can have a genuine conversation. So that's essentially the plan. We've now got 120 or so people come in, so there will be some people that come in just after the hour. We're aware of that. We've created this welcome message so people can catch up, join us with menti.com, etc. So the information's there in the welcome message. It's there on that first slide. So let me just tell you a little bit about Hugo Minney, or Dr. Hugo Minney. I've been working with Hugo, I suppose, for about 10 years, and our involvement together really kicked off with working together with the APM's benefits management SIG. More recently, I think about 18 months ago, we became the benefits and value SIG with a sensible extension or amalgamation of benefits and value. And Hugo now is one of the co-chairs of that specific interest group, and I'm a secretary, so we work very close together on that. Hugo he's written many papers. He joint authored that guide that I mentioned. He's now working hard with the British Standards Institute to create a standard or a guide for benefits realization management. So very, very active. Hugo is currently working up at Sellafield on benefits realization management and into all sorts of other things. But I'm going to let Hugo introduce himself really as he goes. I'm just delighted that he's able to speak to us today. I'll just give you a quick update on numbers. Yeah, 140 or so. And we're going to encourage you to interact with us through menti.com, send in your questions, and don't forget, if you've got the time, we'd like you to stay on with us and join that community questions session. So Hugo, do you want to lead off then in this presentation?
Yes, so just to reinforce, we are looking for feedback. We will ask you specific questions and ask you to use menti.com to respond to those questions. You have the chance within the Q&A section of GoToWebinar to put questions. Merv will be screening them, and he'll tell me which ones I need to produce answers to. We will have a brief moment for some of the most pressing questions before the break. The break is at the end of the hour, and then there'll be more of a community session. So keep those questions flowing, because when we come to the community Q&A at the end, or as an additional bit after the hour, we will be inviting people who've asked questions, if they'd like their microphones turned on, and to ask the question in person. It's impossible to just turn all the microphones on with this number of people, so it will be on the basis that you've highlighted that you've got something you want to contribute. That's through the Q&A bit of GoToWebinar. I know there's a lot of moving parts. I'm really pleased that Merv is keeping an eye on all those moving parts. By all means, tweet and other such things on social media. But what we're really here about is ensuring that you are connected, and we're going to talk about the session. The reason for this slide is to ensure you all become familiar with the technology, so that you put in that you are engaged, that you've found out how to work the system. And so we can all see there we've got 28 responses. The responses clocking up. That's quite heartening. I think we're going to have a good lot of responses all the way through. This is the practice session. I'm not doing a psychological analysis of which dog, who wants, or even whether the domestic short hair is even a dog. We're just doing a quick, does everybody know how to press a button on a phone?
Hugo, I was going to say there is a vested interest in here, because as you know, I'm a dog person and you're a cat person, so it's interesting to see, and I've often predicted the result on this one, but you know, I guess we can perhaps save that for another day. But I noticed the labs in front. Yes.
Up until I got hold of this slide set, it only had which dog would you like to take for a walk, so I snuck the domestic short hair in there. You might have noticed that I quite like the outdoors. I'm currently competing with my garden for who has the most flowers on. And that is my garden, the picture in the background. So what we're talking about, and it will become apparent later, is that maps, profiles and evaluation is the bronze level of the British standard. And we'll talk about the different levels. There's a bronze, there's a silver, there's a gold, exactly as expected. Whether they will be called bronze, silver and gold when the standard gets published, I don't know. At the moment, for drafting purposes, they're called kindergarten, junior and senior. But maps, profiles and evaluation are all the foundations, the basics of benefits management. You need them in place to be able to do benefits management. And there are different levels of benefits management, but I'll come on to that. So you've got used to working the system. With the dog and cat question, it's really pleasing to see that we've got people coming in from different parts of Europe, and that's heartening. I know we've got people. We will have people. We've got Rochelle coming in from Florida. We will have people coming in from North America. I think we've now got people in Central America joining us, and it's likely we'll see. The letters getting a bit small for me. It's likely we'll see Mumbai and other further afield places, which is really heartening. It's great to be able to talk to so many people, and it's great that benefits management is such an important subject to so many people. Benefit management is, of course, the why we do things in the first place. So yeah, it is quite important, and it is it's heartening that so many people are interested in it. We always ask this, which project-related role are you in? Are you in a leadership, including sponsorship? Are you a project delivery? Are you the business analysts? Are you in benefits and value management? Obviously, with a whole series of talks on benefits and value management, we added that category, and so on. I can see the numbers coming in. We will, at a later stage, use this information in analysing answers. So it is quite useful, but it's really interesting that the people who are possibly the most interested in benefits management are the project program portfolio leaders, the managers, and there's a smaller number of sponsors. If I was predicting up front, I'd probably expect more sponsors, and it's heartening that it's going that way. We will come on to talk about Agile and other such subjects in the course of this talk. So the first question is, are there benefits to benefits management? And the PMI published this report. This one's the 2018 one, Success in Disruptive Times. There's a whole series of Pulse of the Profession reports, and this particular one was the one that highlighted that it leads to greater project success. So in this one, PMI studied, compared champion organizations, those that realize the project success more than 80% of the time, about a third of organizations, with those organizations that realize project success, more than 80% of the time versus less than 80% of the time. And I think the averages were around 84% of projects were successful for the 30% of organizations that were called champion organizations. And it was closer, it was below 20% of success in terms of budget, time, and benefits for those organizations that were in the non-champions group. There were a number of reasons given for this. The first and perhaps most obvious was that they used a standard benefits management process, the second being that they used qualified project managers. But in the 2018 edition, and all of this has been repeated from report to report, in the 2018 Pulse of the Profession, what they revealed was that they'd asked the question and found out that the key reason for that greater project success was a steady focus on benefits. I've highlighted at the bottom that it also means organizational success, because more projects being successful tends to mean that you achieve your strategic objectives. So benefits realization management has a benefit of its own. You're putting it in because it's worth putting in. It's always worth highlighting that. Let's define a benefit, and I've used the APMG definition because it's as good as any. A measurable improvement resulting from an outcome perceived as an advantage by one or more stakeholders, which contributes to one or more organizational objectives. Now let's go through these in turn. A measurable improvement means that you can see that you have made a difference. You can actually measure, whether you're measuring in binary terms, it's there or it's not there, whether you're measuring in low, medium, high, whether you're measuring in exact numbers, you can tell that there is something there. Resulting from an outcome, there has to be a logical connection. These aren't, what you see a lot of the time in business cases is we're expecting the following benefits, and there's no obvious link between what they're doing in the project and how they're going to get those benefits. And well, I will show you on the maps that you've got to draw those little linking lines that say we can show there's a logical link. We've drawn the line because we can prove it should be there. And I have seen benefits maps which are really just lists of aspirations. And sometimes you look at what they're planning to do and what they're saying they're going to achieve, and you say, but I can't see how you're going to get there. We need to show that logical link. Benefits very much in the eyes of the stakeholder. So one stakeholder might perceive something as a benefit, like say a low price. The buyer sees a low price as a benefit, and the seller sees the low price as a disbenefit. What we're looking for, APMG is Association for Project Managers Group, but it's a spin-off of the APM. It's the examinations and teaching part, and it never really uses the title in full. I saw that little comment. So benefits are very much in the perception of stakeholders, and what we're looking for is a group of benefits that the stakeholders will broadly go along with. So we're allowed disbenefits. Within that, it might be that a stakeholder is overall going to be worse off, but they are willing, for the greater good of the whole community, all the stakeholders, to go along with this change. And it is important that the benefits we use to justify the business case contribute to the organization's objectives. So what we're saying there is you can have lots of benefits. You can have benefits that are nothing to do with the organization's objectives. But when you're weighing up the return on investment, the benefits divided by the costs, or the benefits minus the costs, depending on how you decide to work out your value ratio, your value, or whether it's a ratio or a difference, then you need to be using the benefits that contribute to the organization objectives, even if you've got a whole lot more benefits. Does that sound reasonable? A reasonable way of defining a benefit. So we take that further and we say, so what is benefits realization management? Now, here are 3 definitions which broadly are the same: the identification, definition, planning, tracking, and realization of benefits. To my mind, this starts too late, because this is saying we've already decided to do something and then we go around looking for benefits. We've made a decision to do this major project. We throw it over the fence to the benefits management team, and they work on finding some benefits to justify after the event. But it carries on through the life cycle. We're going through the definition, making sure we understand them, making sure we've got a plan in place. We're actually measuring them as they're happening, and we get on to the full realization of benefits. It is a second definition says that we're starting off with our outputs and our outcomes, and we're saying, are we getting benefits? Once again, it's quite late in the day. It's saying we've decided what we're going to do, and now we're going to make sure we get some benefits from it. And this rather all-encompassing what you do, what you get when you do the management right. What I will put forward to you is benefits realization management starts earlier than all of those, but it does go right through to the whole life cycle as we carry on. Which leads to a definition. I've used the term project all the way through, but which leads to a definition of projects, programs, and portfolios. Now, I'm not expecting every organization to formally use the term projects, programs, and portfolios, but ultimately you are probably in reality implementing projects, programs, and portfolios in one form or another. So projects are time-defined activities. Programs typically combine a number of projects within them, and portfolios are based on the overall enterprise objectives. They're the collection of activities which lead through to the overall objectives, which then decide which programs we're going to run. And within the programs decide what sequence the project should be in. So if we add on to that, what are we going to do? Well, portfolios are deciding what to do. Programs are deciding what sequence to do it, what to increase, what to decrease. And then projects need benefits management in order to motivate, in order to keep people's eyes on the prize, to ensure they do them well. Benefits come from activity. So you get benefits because you did the project well. You get benefits because, having done the project well, the project was in the right sequence within the program, everything's held together, you've done it in the right way. And finally, you get benefits. And in other words, you achieve your objectives because it was the right things that you did in the first place. So they are all tied together in a nice sequence. So I'm now asking you, you can tick more than one of these if you're involved in more than one aspect of portfolio management. I'm now asking you to get a scope to understand how broadly people are involved on this in this audience, and it's very much in your current role, and it just gives us an idea that inevitably there will be a predominance of people involved in projects because there are a lot more projects, but it is interesting. Some people say you don't get benefits from projects. Perhaps that's exactly why you're here. tell me you'd like to get more benefits from projects. Thank you. So here's a two-way chart. What we're trying to say on this one is, when you say benefits are very important to you, are you saying, having decided they're very important to you, we use them consistently, or are you saying they're very important but we don't actually use them? And obviously you're making an assessment of the organization that you currently work in. You are anonymous, so you can say, give an honest assessment and say, well, actually we say one thing and do another. But what we're looking for is that that consistency. So it looks like all my wonderful plans for being able to see a scatter chart don't happen above a certain number. That's a shame. What I think we saw, we're learning how Mentimeter handles things as it progresses. What I think I saw developing with the vast bulk were either benefits are very important to us and we do them consistently, or benefits are not very important to us and we don't do them. And there were only a few who were saying any of the others, either benefits are not important to us but we do a lot of them, or benefits are important to us but we don't actually do very many of them. We will be able to sorry, we will be able to look at the scatter chart when we download the results. Obviously we won't have your names attached to the results, so your secret will never be revealed as being you, but we will be able to look at the scatter chart when we get the results downloaded from Mentimeter. I had no idea that suddenly all the points were going to disappear above 80 people. That's an interesting finding. So the way the British Standard is structured is that it has two main content sections. First main content section is the life cycle, which we're going to touch on in a moment, and the second main section is the modules. The bit we're talking about here is the benefits map, profiles, and valuation, which is the bronze level. And the bronze level ensures that everybody's aligned to doing the projects and programs well. There's enthusiasm there, they know what direction they're going in. We can make decisions from the quantities expected. We can make decisions to optimize our benefits. The silver level is the next set of modules. The modules inevitably aren't the same number of modules per level because they are the number of modules that fit within that level, regardless of whether it's a nice, neat number or not. The silver level is expanding on the bronze level. It's saying once you've got the foundations in place, that's when you want to start saying, well, for the do nothing option, how will it change over time? Are we expecting deterioration if we did nothing? Are we expecting a seasonal effect? And the lead lag proxy is a particular one I want to pick out, where we say the lag benefit is that we get more customers. The lead benefit is how we measure whether we're likely to get more customers. There's a logical connection. So that's where we're saying we measure the number of new people and retention level without actually, well, from a subsample, which gives us an idea of where we think that the customers will be. And then the proxy measure doesn't have a logical link, and that we can measure that even earlier. We look at focus groups and we say, right, our focus groups say we're making the right decisions. Okay, we've now started to get some sample figures from our lead measure, therefore we can discard the proxy measure, move on to the lead measure, and obviously once we start to see how many customers we've got, that's when we can say with some confidence, let's discard the lag measure. And then gold level is consistency. So it's not an expansion on bronze or silver, it's consistency across the organization. It's saying, what do we need in place to ensure that this happens all over the organization? And as I say, there are 3 levels. We're working on just the first. Applying it to the MSP process, you won't be able to read that. You will, of course, have this as a set of slides in a PDF form afterwards. You can go through this to your heart's content. What I'm illustrating there is that benefits management starts right up before the program mandate, before the decision to investigate further, where you say, what is the problem? Why did we want to do this in the first place? That's the complicated diagram. Here's the simple diagram. Program management consists of a PlayStation with identifying your project nice and bright and sharp, defining what you're trying to achieve, delivering in tranches, which are circular, and then handing over with a plus sign. Benefits management starts with a big why. Why are we doing this? Is there a main benefit, a main driving benefit? Do we have clarity for what we're looking for? And the contrast often given is the Olympic Games had absolute clarity and absolutely clear. This is this is our main objective. We know why we're doing this. It then had a number of a much more detailed, nuanced business case that said, here are a whole lot of other objectives that are going to be satisfied. Here's a whole lot of stakeholders. Here's a whole lot of benefits that we can use in addition to help to justify it, even though the main driver was quite big enough. Then as we deliver the program, that's when we're saying we make decisions. Delivering programs is all about hitting obstacles and making decisions. Instead of making decisions to stay within specification, we're making decisions to optimize our benefits. And then when we hand it over, we may well find that in use, there are a lot of emergent benefits. They need managing too, along with the ones that were planned. So you've got your A and B benefits, your planned benefits and your emergent benefits, both of which could include disbenefits, all being managed to ensure delivery by the business. All of this has been brought out in the recent Public Administration and Constitutional Affairs Committee report, came out on the 28th of July, which was about the government major projects portfolio, which is a mere £468 billion worth of investment, plus the extra that the government's just promised. So it's important. Right, I said I would go through each of these in steps in mapping, profiles, and valuation. So that's exactly what I will do. I've labeled it bronze 1 because that's exactly what it is. What I'd like you to do here, we've only got one ranking, so your rankings will very quickly dwarf this, is to have a look at, actually I'm going to press hide so that so you don't see how someone else has ranked them. Have a look at these and decide which is the most important, which is the second most important, which is the third most important, all the way through. And then we'll have a look when we've got more than 20 results and see where we are, and hopefully we'll get the remaining 80 results to take us past the 100 responses as the slide progresses.
Hugo, what I was going to say is that I popped the link in there to that report by the Public Administration and Constitutional Affairs Committee. You know, it's such a good read.
Yes.
But it's well worth people taking a look at it. So I put that link in there, and I'll put one or two other links in as you mentioned things.
Yes, certainly one of the things that I wanted to highlight from that report is that it says that all project managers should have a pay rise. Now I'm trying to press unhide and see the results.
Just in
do you have any clever ideas what it is? Yes, I've unhidden. With 81, would you expect some, wouldn't we?
I think if you forward the slide and then go back, I think there's possibly a glitch on this slide type. I've had this just this morning.
It's decided to do it
then
now.
Go straight back.
It's just decided to do it all by itself.
Oh, okay, good.
So we're seeing that. We're seeing quite a lot of competition in that the focus on objectives and the define and prioritize benefits are both neck and neck, very much. It looks like people have ranked them in very different orders. To some extent, that's due to my wording. I did think all of these are quite important benefits for benefits mapping, and it's interesting to see that you've reflected my views. I like that. I'm going to cause a little bit of controversy here. Everybody has their favorite columns, and what I've said is that is a single benefits map type. That's all benefits dependency network, which has various other names. What I'm recommending is that you have a look at some other benefit map types, and they work a totally different way. because I think you will find them appropriate in different circumstances. So I've listed here the results chain, which is the oldest form and in many ways the simplest form of benefits map, the benefits dependency network, and you can play around with the columns, and the V-shape, which is very good for starting out. It's very good for a strategic overview. It doesn't work, in my view, once you get into any more detail, but it's a good way to get started, and it's very easy for people to understand. So if we come on to results chain, the results chain, you'll see in the key, you've got outcomes in pink and outcomes in interim outcomes in pink. That means that the shape on the page is outlined in pink, or the shape on the page is outlined in green. Results chain maps are particularly good for longer term projects of perhaps over 3 years. I'm still using the term project to refer to project, program, or portfolio. I'm not being specific, but where you have interim states. And it's also very good for highly complex projects because it works like fractals. You can have this level of detail. You can lump a whole group of things up into a single shape. And you can then expand down and say, I want to see what this is made up of, and break it down to a whole lot of all the detail in a single area. So it's a very good way of summarizing, but in particular, its really big advantages that it allows you to have interim states and interim benefits, which other benefits maps are not so good at. And you'll see that I've modified the results chain by sticking a timeline at the bottom, which then allows you to say, if I put this box here, that's when I'm doing the work. If I put this box here, this circle here, that's when I'm getting the benefit. It's also very good for external links, external dependencies or assumptions. The very same project done in a benefits dependency network. We've got nice objectives on the right-hand side. We've got some nice benefits in a nice column, almost neat. We've got the outcomes, what we expect to see as our end state. Then we've got what we need. So we started from what we're trying to achieve. In order to achieve those objectives, we've then said, what benefits do we need in place to achieve those objectives? We've then said, so in order to get those benefits, what end state do we need to be in, the outcomes, in order to get those benefits, and so on? What capabilities do we need to get that end state, that outcome, and what initiatives do we need? And I've just been doing this with a big government arm's length body. And the first thing I did was say, you've started off with 12 objectives. That's not clear enough. Can we reduce the number of objectives? And we've had some very useful sessions going through summarizing the objectives to make sure we get down to a certain amount of clarity. I've had back, but you've lost some of the richness of the detail, and to which the answer has to be, a benefits map has to be a communications tool. And very often as a communications tool, you need to make a lot more clarity, which can mean simplifying down. When we get onto profiles, we will talk about how to get the richness back into the profile. And this is in the government functional standard for project delivery. And this is saying we're looking for a start point, and the start point is policy. We're looking for benefits as our result, and therefore we go through these different columns. And as I say, it's great for sorting something out, for saying, right, we've got this policy. What does this policy mean in tangible terms? What are the objectives? If we're going to get the objectives, what kind of requirements do we need? Therefore, we need projects which deliver solutions, which deliver outcomes of their own, which then deliver benefits. It's a very good way to get started. It's a very good way to work at strategic level. It starts to become a little bit too complicated, too many columns when you start going into the detail of actually doing and revising on a regular basis. So I recommend that as a start point, but I wouldn't recommend to carry on using it. Benefits dependency networks are the most common ones. They'll be the ones that everybody's familiar with. What becomes really important, and what is a very strong recommendation, the things you should do in the British Standard are that you should link it directly to existing program, project, documentation. So don't get carried away with saying we'll invent a whole lot of new objectives and we'll invent a whole lot of new benefits. You're going back to the original documentation and saying our objectives come from the business case, our outcomes come from the business case or come from the blueprint. I'm using terminology. You'll know that there are lots of varieties of terminology which mean the same thing. So blueprint, interim state, end state, whatever. Our stakeholders have to be involved. Our stakeholders matter. We need to know what their benefits are. And I've got this bit in here, and I've left the mouse in the way, on columns to the left. So you'll see you've got the capabilities and the initiatives to the left of outcomes. A lot of existing projects already know all the things they're going to do. And it's tempting when you set up a half-day workshop for them to spend as much as possible, much of the time as possible, telling you all the initiatives they've done and all the capabilities they've created and going into it in endless detail. I always start with the objectives. I usually do outcomes next, second, and then say the benefits have got to fit between the two. Check that every objective is supported by outcomes, and then check that every objective is supported by benefits when we put the benefits between the objectives and outcomes. And I try and keep people away from the columns to the left because they already know what they're going to do. We don't need to spend time duplicating what's already done. So that's the point I'm really keen to make on this particular slide. And there's one organization probably that's providing all the funding. Their benefits are relevant to the business case. There may be lots of benefits to other stakeholders, but we've really got to concentrate on the ones that provide return on investment. And then finally, a benefits map is a living document. And a living document needs to be revised. So I've just seen a comment come up, what's the difference between an objective and an outcome? An outcome is a state of being. This is what the world will look like. An objective is the kind of change that you want to make in the world. So you might say, well, our objective is to make more profit, or you might say our outcome is to make more profit. You can't necessarily in your project affect the making more profit. You can affect the reducing costs. So the reducing costs becomes the outcome of your project, and the objective is to make more profit. But it's really important. What you will find as you go back and review your benefits map, you will find that things change. Priorities for a benefits map, when it changes. Oh, well, no, what I've got here is I've got a link back. If you go on to the PMI webinar library and scroll right back to one of the first recorded UK webinar library events, earned benefits is a way of putting numbers on everything. It might not be the best way, but it's the best way that's easily accessible. So I did want to point people at that, and I think you're about to see put up in chat the link through to that particular webinar or to the webinar library. Let's ask you, do you use benefits mapping yourselves? I've got a scale here. I've got a scale from each project decides to do benefits mapping or doesn't, through to the project manager does it on their own, through to the stakeholders do it together, through to an organization say everybody's got to do it and it's got to be done this particular way. So I've concentrated on benefits mapping because that'll be the area familiar to people. I'm going to take you through the profiles, and I'm going to take you through the valuation. I'm going to do them a little bit more quickly. That's quite a good mix. That's
yeah.
Yes.
I have one idea on this. I don't know whether it's worth doing it here or elsewhere to segment the data, show people what we might expect different results.
Compare. Lost my segmentation. There we go. Lost my button. So segmenting the data by project role, the colors should come up. What we can see, which is quite interesting, is a complete spread of all the different types are involved in, and leadership's at the bottom. I never understand why these keys are always the opposite way up from the stack. But leadership at the bottom, and what we see is a complete spread for all roles, which is unusual. Wouldn't necessarily have expected that in all amounts of benefits mapping, but I suppose that's because of organizations. Different organizations do it differently. So there are different advantages to different benefits mapping styles. I'll go into that when we look at alternatives towards the end. Benefits profiles are fairly straightforward, and you may already do them. What is it? It has a name. The name is short enough to fit on one of those tags on a benefits map. It then needs a description to make sure that it's unambiguous, and typically descriptions can be anywhere between 100 and 400 words, or you could have huge descriptions. I'd recommend that you have a description that can be read almost at a glance. The benefit profile starts to describe who's involved, and it will describe, it will pick them up from the map, but it will describe the dependencies in both ways. So some of the things that you need to do when you do a benefits profile is you need to decide, when you've got a lot of benefits, you need to decide which benefits you're going to put a lot of more effort into and which benefits you're actually not going to put a lot more effort into. The ones that you put a lot more effort into are the ones that are going to be measured on an ongoing basis. So they need to be the ones that justify your business case. As you look through the sections, you might say, well, we've done the map as group work, therefore the name is group work. We want to do the who's responsible for what as group work, but writing a description by committee just doesn't work. So we'll do that as solo work. You'll be putting your risks, assumptions, issues, and dependencies in there. And as you finish your benefit profile, you'll be going back to your benefits map and you'll be saying, so where have we got benefits with no outcomes to support them? Where have we got objectives with no benefits to support them? Where are we going wrong and where are we going right? So you're putting flesh on the bones, as it were, which is what the illustration shows. So here's another question. How do you do benefit profiles? Do you do them? Do you not do them? Do you do them with a benefit owner assigned? The people first off, the mark are very much what I observe when I go around organizations, that there's an awful lot that either don't do it or do it inconsistently, and rather fewer that are doing it using a defined template or consistently across the organization. So it's reassuring that I'm not going mad on that one. And I won't split that down because I want to carry on to putting a value on benefits. This can be one of the difficult bits. I say can be one of the difficult bits. Yes, that comment's very true. I've listed common currencies in the gold section, so we're getting well ahead of us by saying, what are you going to report? But what we're saying there is, you might say our benefit is to reduce costs, and therefore it's obvious we should report that benefit in pounds. But when you're saying we're reducing costs, you might say, yes, but what we're actually doing is reducing staff time on a particular process. Therefore, what you're actually measuring is time, and you've got to convert it into costs in order to report. So putting the value may involve measuring in one unit and reporting in another unit and having some sort of conversion between the two. For the purposes of the business case, you need to know how much you're expecting, because that gives you an idea of how much to invest. Typically, a rule of thumb is that you should expect to invest roughly 1/7 of your total benefits. Our investment comes in many forms. The obvious form is money, but there are other forms as well. You might invest reputation, you might invest scarce resources that are being taken away from other projects. You might even invest intellectual property. You're investing the scarce resources. When do you expect it? And you might say, well, we've got an ROI window of 10 years or an ROI window of of 3 years. That's part of putting a value on benefits. That last question, I wonder if you can put it into the Q&A and we can talk about it afterwards. And we talked about it with what are you going to report? What are you going to measure? Again, we go into this in more detail at the silver level, but we are saying how, in order to report what you want to report on the value of the benefits, what are you going to measure? And as part of your forecast, you'll be working out when you're going to, how much you expect of each measure as part of the forecast in order to say, okay, that are we on target or are we not on target? And finally, what gets measured gets done. Do you have in place the right kind of reporting for your period end and your assurance gates to ensure that people actually pay attention to benefits? Because if it's not part of the assurance gate, if a project can go on without benefits reporting, then people won't do it because it's an extra task. Those are all important points. Going into the detail of how do you measure, that would be beyond the scope of a brief talk. Obviously, I'm very happy to go into detail, but not in the course of an hour. So how much do you value benefits? Do you measure them in detail, or do you measure them on all projects? I can see the results coming in. I know these are challenging questions. That's why we ask them, because we want to know the answers. And it's interesting, it looks, you can see from the shape of the blob, what we can see is that a lot of people are valuing benefits on some projects. There's not so many people either not valuing benefits, and almost no one valuing benefits on all projects. Most people are in the middle, whereas the total value versus the in detail, there's quite a lot of people. There's more people saying, although the averages are the same, there's more people saying we measure the benefits in detail, never, and more people saying we measure the benefits in detail at 3 and 4. It's more of a double hump chart than the whether you do it on all projects. 3 more questions coming up. How do you value them? Are you doing them precisely? Are you including social value? Are you using lead measures? Lead measures being the measures logically connected that enable you to make decisions early. It's easy to say we're going to save lots of money, but how do you know in advance? So how do you make those decisions to optimize benefits at the point that you still can make decisions? Because if you wait until after you've delivered the project, it's too late to change your mind. You've already delivered. And that's really the big advantage of putting in benefits management properly, is being able to make decisions during project delivery at a point where you can still influence the outcome, rather than waiting till it's too late to influence the outcome and kind of hoping that you'll get the result you first thought of. So I'll run you quickly through some of the variations. For new initiatives, we've talked about existing initiatives where you get told to come up with some benefits. For new initiatives and for the very long term, there's investment logic mapping, there's the V-shaped chart, and of course there's the benefits dependency network running from right to left. And it's always important to go through that right to left. It's quite important to go through the left to right as well. That says, okay, we've decided these are the initiatives we're going to do. Going from left to right, do we end up with the objectives we first thought of? Because if we don't, we've done something wrong. So that can be quite interesting. Results chain mapping is almost the only way to be able to work on interim blueprints, interim end states. In other words, something that functions even though it's not the final end state, because you've still got to keep the show on the road. And because we're going for, and this is the final module in the gold module, gold standard, because we're going for the benefits driving the strategy, what we're saying is the benefits are the measurement, the progressive achievement of our objectives. Based on those benefits, What do we need to do in order to get our objectives, our corporate objectives, our overall strategic objectives to work? So for those who understand Agile and for those who are possibly thinking they're not quite sure, let's see, looking at these little tokens as they come up, is the basis for Agile is all about benefits, or Agile doesn't use benefits, and are benefits the final total, everything that it's all about, or are benefits only relevant where they show the progressive realization of objectives? The way the animation works is it tends to start at the opposite side to where it's going to end up. So what we can see is quite a lot of Agile is all about benefits, which is definitely what I'd expect. Just before it went off, which is why I was talking through it, the limit must be 50, and an even spread between benefits of everything and benefits are only relevant to objectives. So I think that was really interesting, and as I say, we will try and get those scatter graphs out afterwards and illustrate them in a different way so that we can leaf them back into the slides. What happens next? So we've done the bronze. The benefits of bronze are focusing on achieving objectives. It helps with the motivation of the teams. They can see where they're heading. It informs your decisions, and it's good for that. And I've put motivation in twice because motivation is so important. Silver helps you to do things well and to do the start, stop, increase, decrease. And gold starts to get the common reporting, enabling you to compare one investment opportunity with another investment opportunity and say, now that we can see the benefits reported in common currencies, that's when we can start to say, yes, we can compare them and we can make sensible decisions. It takes decisions from being an art form to having a little bit of science behind it. And I think that's to me, that's quite important. It is about planning across the organization. Obviously, if you've read the guide to using a benefits management framework, you'll recognize this diagram from it. That's where the common currencies are coming out. I will talk about common currencies, but I'll probably talk about them in the half hour afterwards because I want to give Peter a chance to do his talk. Here is the document itself. You can grab it from the handouts at the moment. Usually it's behind a paywall. It's only available to APM members, but do grab it at the moment. And it's very much the benefits management framework very much recognizes that you'll be coming to projects and programs at different stages. Some will be just starting out, and that's great. You can plan what you're going to do on the basis of what objectives you're trying to reach. Some will be almost closing, and you'll be trying to retrofit benefits. You can do it, and you can do it to illustrate the lessons learned. I'm currently doing that on one of the more high-profile projects at Sellafield. What we always ask is, can professional bodies help? And given that this webinar is on benefits, can professional bodies help with realizing benefits from projects and programs? I know the keyboard's going to be tiny on your device. I hope some of you will be able to put some input in here. That's good. That's looking good. We will have a section on reflective practice. Some of them will be the similar sorts of comments, but I think what we're particularly looking for is the professional bodies, and there's some really good stuff coming up. I think you're absolutely right. Sharing use cases, sharing successful examples is one of the key areas. Best practice I always find a little bit difficult because it's not always best practice. It's often something someone just made up. But effective practice, common practice would be another. And the British Standards Institute tries to write standards, intends to write standards, which on the one hand reflect what is successful, but on the other hand, it's not breaking new ground. It's codifying what's already there. And that's very much what I'm doing with the benefits management standard. I'm codifying the best of what's already there so that other people can copy it. It might be there because of me, but there we go. So would your organization use a standard on benefits management? Now, the fact that it's British, it won't take all that long because to become worldwide, because what the British Standards Institute and the International Standards Organization have a relationship whereby typically ISO will adopt what's already been developed with a certain amount of scrutiny, what's already been developed in a member country with a certain amount of scrutiny, and obviously the British Standards Institute adopts the ISO standards. So what I'm looking for really is just to get a picture of where people feel that their organization would be, and might use is useful feedback. To find out more, you can, if you're quick, because I'm going to fly on to the next slide, you can ask me to keep you updated if you put your details in here quickly. The alternative is to contact me via my LinkedIn profile and my email address. And my email address is on my LinkedIn profile, and talk about it. What I can't do is share the content of the standard. That's strictly forbidden. What I can do is say, here's a section and we need specific answers from a specific industry sector on this particular section, and help to develop it to ensure that it's compatible with every industry sector. Thank you. So that's 29 responses so far on that. That's pretty good. Reflective practice, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fly past the reflective practice and come back to it, because I want to give a chance for one question now, and then I want to give Peter Glynn a chance to talk about forthcoming events, a particular forthcoming event, and then we've got the 30 minutes of community Q&A coming up afterwards. So that's me. I will share that at the end of the 30 minutes.
I don't know if other people have got the same problem. Your audio seems to have gone missing, Hugo. On the basis that others might not be able to hear Hugo. No, it seems to maybe we've lost connection. Yep, your sound has gone, Hugo. Whether you can hear us, but let's take this opportunity then to bring Peter in as we wait for Hugo to come back. And Peter, there we are. We can see you. Lovely pink shirt. Is the mic on? We haven't got your mic. Oh, there we are. Go on. So tell us a little bit about the award ceremony and what you've got in store there.
Yeah, great. So I think I'd like just to take a few minutes just to actually do a short summary of the National Project Awards for 2020. So hopefully I've got a short presentation back, which hopefully will screen shortly, where I can step you through this. I just want to spend a few minutes as a short introduction into the National Project Awards and step you through the very exciting things that we're planning over coming. So just 1 second while we bring up the content. There we go, great. So I just wanted to through an introduction myself, that I'm Peter Glynn. I'm volunteered for the National Project Awards in 2020, and I just have a short presentation. It should be less than 5 minutes with a summary of the awards for this year.
Okay, just tell me when you need to go on, Peter. I think we'll do it that way.
Yeah, great, yeah. If we can move on to the next slide, that'd be great. So I just wanted to set the context for the awards. So I mean, I think it's fair to say that the awards are open to any organization or team or individual. You don't need to be a member of PMI to have to enter the award. So that literally that any project in the UK is absolutely open for submission for the National Project Awards. They can be of any size, of any type, and from any industry. I think it's really, really important that we get a really good representation from so many industries and so many sectors across the piece. In terms of what the judges are looking for, they're looking for superior performance through the application of project management, then having a big focus on things like organizational results and having positive impacts. Or for some of our awards, they have a focus on having those impacts in the community. So I think really what we're trying to get across here is that the awards are open to absolutely everybody from every sector. Again, I just wanted to highlight that this year, as you'll be aware, that we obviously are having a challenging time at the moment with having to respond to COVID-19, and we're very well aware of the impact that has had on the country, on the economy, on everyone's lives. And we wanted to find an appropriate way of how we would acknowledge the amazing work that has taken place over the last number of months on COVID-19. And for this year, we have set up a special award, which is for the UK's best, the overall response project for COVID-19. Now, we are seeking public nominations, and these nominations are open to any member of the public. We have a short form. It takes only a handful of minutes to have to complete. It will ask for your name, for your email address, the name of the projects that you want to nominate, and a short summary of 1 or 2 lines, and that's it. So again, we will take the overall long list, and from that, the overall top 10 will be announced in November. And then we have a specialist panel that will actually make a decision on the ones that will go forward for a final public vote. And the overall winner of the award will be announced at our gala dinner in March. But I think that the overall point here is that we want to actually find a very fitting way of how we recognize all the amazing work that has gone on over the last number of months and how we as a country have responded to COVID-19. Then separately from that, I just wanted to introduce the 8 of the award categories and our special one as well that I've just mentioned. So here you'll see the overall award categories, starting with number 1, which obviously looks at large private enterprise, all the way down to number 8, which is the overall volunteer of the year. And then we have the special COVID-19 award. We feel that we have a very good variety of different categories across the awards this year, and I strongly encourage you to have a look at the list and find the one that is the most appropriate for your submission. That it doesn't take long to have to put through a submission. That it's a 5 or 6 page form, which is a standard template, and that it's up to the person submitting how much detail they want to include under each section. Now, we do have certain limits in certain sections, but it's not a very long and very detailed process. So again, I highly encourage all of you to have a think about the overall best category for your submission, and to have a look at having that in for the 25th of September. Here on the next page, just wanted to highlight key dates. The overall closing date for submissions is September 25th. And I think it's important to highlight that we are less than 45 days away from that. So again, I would highly encourage you to think about getting your submissions in sooner rather than later, because it is amazing how quickly 45 days goes by. The finalists will be announced on the 9th of November. And that will be for the full 9 categories. Now, we are very, very mindful of the impact that we've had from COVID-19 this year. And as a result, we are holding the awards black tie dinner on the 4th of March next year, and that actually will be hosted by PwC in London, and we are very much looking forward to that as a very exciting event that will actually recognise so much achievement across the whole of the UK around projects and programme management, and I'm very excited about it, and I'm very much looking forward to it. So I think that the overall message that I'd like to leave you with is that we have less than 45 days until the closing day for submission, and I highly encourage you to look at the various categories and submit your application, and we very much look forward to seeing that application and having to work with you over coming months. Finally, that I'd like to say thank you, and that it was really good to have the opportunity that I can share with you the overall plans on the National Project Awards.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Peter. I think we're going to try and get Hugo back in a minute, but it did occur to me that we could have done a much neater segue there, because I think you actually created the benefits management SIG back in, I think it was probably about 10 or 11 years ago.
It was back in September 2008, and I set up the APM Benefits Management SIG, and that the great group of people involved, including yourself, Merv, we had Hugo, and a whole range of other people, and we had a really good time putting that together, and it is still going very strong. Absolutely.
Yeah, is this kind of journey together, and it is very much a journey, I think, rather than reach the destination on this. Hugo, I've given you time to recover whatever happened with your machine, etc. Are you okay now, audio-wise?
We'll find out when I start talking.
Okay, no, that sounds loud and clear. So do you want to, shall I give you presenter back, or did you want to just present the screen?
I will take my screen back.
So we've gone over into the hour, but still got 115 of you with us, so thank you for that. We're going to move into this kind of less formal.
So for anybody who's tight for time, absolutely. Your hour, you've done your hour. You've been very noble sticking through it. I hope you've learned something useful. The opportunity in this extra half hour is to discuss more comments in greater depth. And the reason I'm leaving up the reflective practice screen is that can take time for people to think what they have reflected on. We do share the slides with the reflective practice in when we share the slide set. And thank you for those who've done the hour and can't stay any longer. And I'm delighted that people are staying on. More than 100 people are staying on. So there's a number of questions which have come through on the Q&A, on the GoToWebinar Q&A, and I'll probably start at the top. So Richard has said, have you seen benefits maps within the business case used as a way of illustrating strategic alignment? I was going to ask Richard if he wanted his microphone turned on, but I think with 100 people, it's probably a little bit difficult. So the simple answer to that is no, I haven't. I haven't seen a business case that says you should have a benefits map in it. It's an interesting idea, and I may find that there are people out there who say, well, we require benefits maps in our business cases. What I've tended to find is they're added on as appendices rather than used directly. But the business case team at Sellafield, which is where I'm currently working, is redesigning the whole business case process, which includes the various assurance gates leading up to business case passing. And I'm asking them if they can work on the assurance gates from then on. And that will mean that benefits maps become an implicit part, for the simple reason that because I'm taking them through, revising them all the time, they're going to end up saying, yep, that's great, we will put them in. I hope that feels like that answers that question. Let me just
Hugo,
Yes.
this might work, and I can probably open Richard's mic, and he can let us know whether or not that's worked. I'm going to try unmuting you. Richard,
Yep, I can. Can you hear me now?
Fantastic. Indeed, yes.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one, and the reason we did it was we had a section in the business case. We just redesigned it, and we had a section called strategic alignment, and it's page 1 after the problem statement. And we started thinking, well, we could put a whole load of words in there, but it's the normal kind of rubbish. Actually, by having a pictorial representation, we were trying to put it front and center. We started off having it as an appendix in a normal way, but actually thought, well, actually it paints a picture and tells the story, and it makes it crystal clear. Well, I did do the Managing Benefits Practitioner course a couple of weeks ago, and I asked the same question, and the answer was, oh no, that's the wrong thing. But it's early days, but it looks so it's working for us.
Yes, that's terrific. And I can see it would work. Business cases have always been designed around, or in my experience, have been designed around being terribly formal, and they need a little bit of livening up and colour, particularly in this age when just about everything's done electronically, so colour ceases to be an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Richard.
It's certainly in the plans at Sellafield. It just hasn't happened. So the next on the list that I've got is Mudasar asking how to present intangible outcomes. So I'd be tempted to say nothing's intangible, everything can be measured, but that's based on my specialist area within benefits management, which is social impact, social value, social return on investment, where the general philosophy is everything can be measured. You just have to decide, again, it's a reason for prioritizing. You have to decide what's worth measuring. And having decided what's worth measuring, if it's one of the outcomes that or benefits that's traditionally thought of as being intangible, then you have to put a bit more thought into being able to measure it. Merv, I don't know if you've managed to get to Mudasar and find out if he's able to have his microphone opened.
I haven't. I've got Sarah Paris who will do next, but sorry, I've missed that. So probably not in that case, a little bit later, I think.
But yes, it's possible. It is a huge subject in itself. I've even written a book on the subject, which is available on the APM website. This one isn't behind a paywall. You can download this easily without being a member. Search for APM SROI, which stands for Social Return on Investment, on Google, and it should bring you a direct link up to the SROI guide.
Okay, I'll put a message through to Mudasar, so if you do want me to open your mic, I will do. But meanwhile, shall we? Sarah's made a few comments really, and of course it was Sarah that contributed to the guide. So I'm just going to unmute you, Sarah, and you probably need to unmute, self-mute.
Hiya, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Excellent. Yes, I just wanted to say something about strategic alignment and business cases. I'm currently working in a global insurance organisation, introducing benefits management as a practice and a capability to them. They were habitually in the habit of just looking for financial benefits to justify business cases, which they call mandates and charters. But I've introduced benefits mapping to support mandates and charters, but I'm encouraging everyone to think about strategic alignment right from when the idea first pops up in the pipeline, before they've even got as far as filling in a mandate or a charter, because it's the way in which the pipeline one of the ways in which the pipeline options are prioritized. One of the things that we had to do was to define the strategic objectives for the change portfolio, and you'd be surprised how many organisations don't actually have well-defined strategic objectives, and for that reason perhaps alignment isn't such a popular thing. But for those that do, it should be very easy to say, even with a very, very simple benefits map, how you're strategically aligned, and that can be a good way to help prioritise investments even when you don't have any quantification of any financial benefits. The degree of alignment can give you a score that can be used in a scoring model, and alongside various other things around achievability and attractiveness and so on. So yes, I just wanted to say that about strategic alignment.
Yes, and we do get a comment from David Warner. David mentions a map in the business case is a really good way to stop a lot of waffle.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It really does get you to focus on the important outcomes and not get people to think about why they're doing things and not what they're doing and what they're producing. It's why are they doing those things?
So one of the struggles I'm having, challenges I'm having with benefits maps produced within the organizations I'm working with at the moment is that they want to link everything to everything. So they would like to say everything's aligned to every strategic objective. And I'm reining them back from that, and it's important to include some level of quality assessment to say, is this benefits map all it's cracked up to be? So I'm recommending they want a number of benefits managers covering the different portfolios. It's a sufficiently large organization to have a number of portfolios. And I'm saying the benefits managers who work with and coach these portfolios need to all report in the same team so that between them they can ensure that they set the same standards. They end up with a consistent optimism bias rather than inconsistent, one prone to vastly overestimating and one prone to being a lot more realistic. They have the same standards for what constitutes a logical link on the benefits map and what doesn't get, what's a minor contribution, and therefore the arrow shouldn't be drawn. And it'll be important when we say how much alignment is there, not to count the number of arrows, but to count the number of quality arrows that show the linkage.
Yeah. On that, I mean, we've got to the stage of having several projects and programs with benefits maps now, and quite a lot of projects lined up on the right, benefits lined up on the right-hand side, to which I then ask the question, and which are the really pivotal ones, the ones on which the business case rests, the ones you must achieve to be able to justify the investment. And those are the ones that I encourage filling out benefit profiles for and ensuring that you have leading indicators or leading measures, I think you called them, to ensure that those ones are on track, because the others are nice to have and they can strengthen the case, but they're not the reason for doing the project.
Yes, and I'd certainly reinforce that. There are lots of different words used to mean the same thing: indicators, measures, all sorts. We will see that, column names, column headings for the benefits dependency network, lots of different variations of what are actually the same thing. So don't get hung up on a specific set of terminology. It's the concepts that are important, as Sarah's highlighted.
Hugo, I've got
I'll leave it with you to choose the next question.
I've got Fernand, and you can see that he's got a question now. I'm going to open his mic now. So there we are. I think, Fernand, you can speak and ask your question.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, yes, I'm curious because at the end, portfolio, program, whatever management, for the organization is, how to select the real projects that we have to perform. And
Yes.
if we are talking about a benefit currency, which really how to compare things. I was thinking, in this book, Thinking Fast, Thinking is Slow, that really is reframing. Okay, how can I, with all the risks of reframing things, but can I define, for example, for this organization, we say that going to the market a month earlier is equivalent to more or less X cost.
Yes.
So, and to get them people comparing or getting a way of comparing projects instead of just, being the one who shouts louder, getting the money.
And you're absolutely right. And that's where I say it's important to start using common currencies. but common currencies are quite an advanced module as far as, in my experience, in that chart. I've put them up in gold for consistency. You'd need your bronze level benefits management in place, a good foundation. You'd need your silver level, which is an understanding that there are different ways to measure things. So, for example, for social value, the social value UK and social value international have it as part of their philosophy that everything can be converted into currency equivalent, money equivalent. Whereas if I'm working in Sellafield has a key priority, which is reducing risk and hazard. And they say, we don't feel it's necessary to convert that into a pound equivalent. Quality of life, as an example, we might measure in pound equivalent, and someone has asked the question, how do you measure it in pound equivalent? It's relatively straightforward. There's a figure that the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence NICE use. There are figures that other people use, but you might say, what I want is increased quality of life, and the only reason for turning it into a pound equivalent is for when I'm asking the government for money. And the rest of the time, I'm turning around to the people who live in a particular area and say, this is the quality adjusted life year, the number of extra quality years that the people here would expect to live on average on a person by person basis as a result of making these changes. So you're right, you can express things in pounds and you can express things in other terms. And whilst I would always recommend you keep the number of common currencies to a minimum, I've suggested in my current writing in the standard that it's 8, but I think it's going to have to be a lot fewer. I think it's going to have to be no more than 5. You can have more than one currency to report things in order to say we can compare 2 projects because they both report in the same currencies in terms of their benefits. And we can say this one gives us this return in financial terms and this return in reputational terms, and that one gives us that return in financial terms and that return in reputational terms, and therefore we can compare apples with apples, even though they're very dissimilar projects. Does that make sense?
Yes. It's difficult to do, but it's a lot. There's a lot of room for discussing, saying, but it's possible. It's a way to try to compare things on the same basis or similar.
Yes. So the way I look at difficult to do is if it was simple, they wouldn't give me my wages. They'd find someone cheap to do it.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a few more here. I think there's a really interesting one from Sandro, who I'm not sure that he can open mic or not. I've asked, but where do you link intended benefits to risks as well as to disbenefits?
So is he talking about on the benefits maps? I think that was one of the early questions that came in when I was still talking about maps.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
It is possible to put a marker. I mean, in general terms, you put the risks and associate and assumptions and so on into the benefit profile. So they would need to appear in the documentation for the benefit profile. The mapping type which enables you to add them is the results chain mapping, where you can put on risks and assumptions onto the map itself. It's not usual to put them onto the benefits dependency network, and I think that's principally because benefits dependency networks can very quickly get complicated even without the additional information. Although I know, as an example, that Peter Glynn, when he worked at another consultancy, developed a form of mapping that included some of the details from the profiles and the product that Merv represents in the UK, Europe and Africa. It will enable you to put some extra detail about a particular benefit onto the map. So you could tick the box that says, or you will be able to tick the box that says, I want to show whether there's risks attached to this, and it would then show whether there were risks, but it wouldn't show you the actual risks simply because it would add too much information onto a map and make the map too complicated. But yes, risks sit there in the profiles.
Yeah, I come back to your point, which, you know, the map is essentially a communications tool. So you do want it to be as clear as possible. But what I would say on the risk, I would see it as part of RAID, risk assumptions, issues, dependencies, and they can either be associated with the benefits on your right-hand side of the map, in which case I'd call them realization RAID items, or on the left against the initiatives, and I call them delivery. So, you know, I guess we all do things differently, but you know, we make a distinction between risk to benefit and risk to initiative.
And that's right as far as the benefits dependency network is concerned. The results chain mapping is specifically designed to allow you to include that kind of level of detail,
Yes.
and to display when it's appropriate to display it, or not display it when it's not appropriate to display it, which is one reason why I'm saying actually results chain mapping is fundamentally different and is a very useful approach to mapping.
Yeah, for sure. I reckon we've got time for one more question, Hugo, before we come up to the half hour, and we'll just quickly finish up with the events, etc. Particular question there that struck you, Hugo, or?
No, because I haven't been reading them. I've
Okay.
been relying on you.
I've got one in mind from David. This is David Waller, and you mentioned in your talk about investing 1/7 of your investment in the benefits. He wants you to explain more.
Other way around. Other way around.
Okay.
What I said was, once you know what your planned benefits are,
yes,
then you could expect to spend around 1/7 of the total benefit amount on the investment. So it's expecting a 7-to-1 return on investment. Now, a lot of organizations will throw their hands up in horror and say, how on earth do you get to 7-to-1? We normally work quite happily on 1.1-to-1 return on investment. To which I'd respond, well, once you've taken risk into account, you may well find that your final result is 1.1-to-1. But because risks can be quite high, you may well want to start. So if you're in, say, manufacturing cars, you would typically expect that your return on, for example, wages is about 7-to-1. The amount of profitable car you get out versus the amount you're paying out in wages will be a fairly large ratio. And why not expect the same of change programs? Substantial return. What it means in practice, again, picking an example from Sellafield, is if we know that downtime as a result of server outages is costing the organization 10 million a year, once we've got that figure, then we can say, so the amount we should probably be investing is about 1.4 million. Therefore, instead of patching all these servers, why don't we just buy a whole new lot? Or if we say, no, it's around the 1 million a year, then we say, 140,000 isn't going to get as much in the way of new servers. Therefore, let's just work on patching, because the amount is not big enough to justify a much larger investment. It gives you a start point, because the temptation is to say, we'll do it in the cheapest way possible. And as a result, you spend 140,000 on patching, and actually the organization is losing tens of millions because the patching isn't as effective as scrapping the whole lot and buying some new ones. So it's a useful rule of thumb, the 1-to-7, but different organizations will say, no, I use a totally different ratio. And of course, it takes into account taking a whole lot more benefits that wouldn't typically be monetized, and saying we'll monetize those benefits as well.
Yes, I was going to mention that it seemed to be a rule of thumb, or Hugo's law, if you like, to be kind of challenged, or at least to start a conversation, but nonetheless, you know, very useful. We're going to end up to the up to the half-hour additional very shortly. Could we just flick across to the upcoming events, and then maybe as we finish up, settle back on something like the reflective practice? So.
Oh, are they at the end?
Oh, they might be at the end. So yeah, and all these slides are available, so you'll find out more details of these. You can pick them up online, and our digital events. Hopefully, it's the next one. They're not. Okay. as Hugo finds them, there are essentially 4 items on there. We're having a
probably was where the little dog
it probably was
wasn't
actually. It's just it just built. It's a build slide, I think, Hugo. So there we are. It just build out. There we are. So slightly different times of the day, but at 2:45, really kicking off at 3, we've got a session on virtual collaboration. This is the last Friday of the month. It's led by a number of other PMI chapters. In particular, one of the lead chapters is Mumbai. So it kicks off 4.5 hours ahead of us, time zone wise. But it's truly an international event. We're delighted to be hosting it, and we expect up to 500 people on that. It's part of the chapter exchange program. Really exciting program, really exciting topic. Then on the 3rd of September, we're welcoming David Hawkins. David is from the Institute of Collaborative Working, and he's developed what was a British standard, is now an international standard for collaborative relationships. Really, really interesting. And we think we're going to get a lot out of that, and we are actually formally partnering now with the Institute of Collaborative Working. On the 9th of September, we welcome back Nigel Smith, one of our digital events team, but also a number of things, but a very professional Toastmaster, and he's going to do a session about Toastmaster with some of his colleagues on prepare to stand and perform. So that will be really interesting. That's another one of our lunchtime slots on the 9th. And then we're back to benefits. On the 17th of September, we welcome Kevin Parry, who's doing some work on managing benefits and the human factors that provide the barriers and the challenge to successful benefits management. So that's the events. Hugo, 1 minute left, I think, or maybe 1 minute over. Do you want to just kind of final remarks?
It's been fantastic. I'd just like to remind people we will send out a follow-up email. The follow-up email will give you the links to the slide set. The recording usually follows within a couple of days to be added to those links. You will be able to revise this and pick up the slides with your answers included in those slides. I hope you've enjoyed it. By all means, send feedback by email when you get the email out, and I hope you will enjoy coming to many more of these events.
Indeed. What I realised I'd just forgotten, Hugo, as I thank you, was to put the PDU code in the chat. So there it is in the chat for those of you that want the code. We're also going to include it in the email that goes out, as Hugo says, a little bit later. So do help yourself to it and claim your PDU. And if you want to give this session a good review, we'd always appreciate that too. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you again, hopefully on the 28th of the month. And a big thank you to you, Hugo.
And we end up with still 65 people online, which is a record.
Okay, thanks then. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.